Gee fellas, what a fantastic adventure that was. We sure did learn a lot. We went back in time and had a greater adventure than either the time that we thought Master Splinter was dead, went to the farm, trained, came back, and killed the Shredder. We also had a much better adventure than the time when we thought the Shredder came back, he did come back, we came back, and then killed him. Again, this is the best of the three. But I don't know, fellas. Something sure does seem different about Master Splinter.
He's fine. Don't worry about it. You were expecting maybe the Addams Family? Hey, Turtles, there's nothing different about me. Don't worry about it. Remember, this is your father, Scruffy. I mean, Splinter. Me don't know Scruffy. Seems legitimate to me.
Master Splinter, you sure are the same as you always were. You are just as mobile, and certainly as realistic as before. Go out and buy all the toys. Remember, parents, take your children to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
And just remember, all of the rumors you hear about Turtles 3 being a shameless Ponzi scheme, they are rumors, they are nothing else.
And be sure to come to the movie for me, Robbie Rest. And remember, kids, don't miss the greatest star of all times, Corey Feldman, who is also in the film.
Yeah, I got sober for this one. Sort of. And good news, fellas, April found this scepter for me at the Goodwill. Maybe this one will take me back to the 1920s, huh?
No, Master Splinter, don't touch that! I think we went too far, boys. Let's pack it up.
Yeah, guys, time to go. We got to get out of here. Hope it wasn't an ancestor.
Greetings, fanboys and fangirls. Jared here with another video review from Fanboys Forever. And today, no, I am not reviewing all 3 original VHS tapes from the original Turtles trilogy from the early 90s. Instead, I am reviewing the final VHS box set that we have gotten from Neca of the figures from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. And I'm really excited about these figures because this does complete that original trilogy of movies. And it's really amazing to me that it's been this long multi-year journey, but here we are at the end of it with all 3 films covered with these beautiful VHS style boxes, and I'm very impressed that they were able to keep it so consistent amongst all 3 movies. But before we begin, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. We do reviews like this all the time, and of course we do a lot of Turtles and Masters of the Universe content right here on the channel, as well as Batman reviews and anything else you can imagine. And of course be sure to like the video because that really does help us out. And comment down below and let us know what you thought about this particular set of figures, if that suits your fancy. But with all that out of the way, let's begin. So we'll start by just looking at how cool it is to have all 3 of these together finally. You can actually see how cool this is on the sides. I love that they've even went to the trouble of replicating the spine art on the VHS tapes. And I've always been particularly impressed by the original movie's spine art being replicated. It does weird things to my mind sometimes to look at these because they're very convincing as the actual genuine article. Not only that, but they very much stayed true to what the original backs of the VHS tapes looked like. And you can see that for Turtles 3, the one we're looking at today, just like the others, it's really cool to see that they have like an actual quote from some review or something of the figures, which is pretty cool. And then I think that the back summary of the film here is just exactly the same as the original VHS tape, but don't hold me to that. As always, I really do appreciate how Neca always credits the actual artists that create the figures. I will say that they didn't quite get away with not having the giant Nickelodeon logo at the bottom. It's not too big. It's kind of weird that it's there. They only made them put it on the back on the first movie. And on Turtles 2, they had the sweetest deal of all because they only had to put it on the top of the spine. So, you know, it doesn't bother me that much. Some people that really bothers a lot, but still, it's kind of weird to see it on Turtles 3. So with all of these, you basically just take this off just like it is a VHS. So this part just slips off like a slip cover. And I've already removed the figures. Here's a brief shot of them inside the packaging if you need that for reference or something later on. And you can see that it kind of has like a dojo in the sun setting, kind of like that old poster. And then you turn it around and you have all kinds of great action figure photography of them in the armor and them posed up in different ways that are kind of like the back of the VHS. I like how they have their really angry heads right here. At no point in Turtles 3 are they ever this mad about anything. You can see they have Turtles 3 on the back. At the bottom it's just yellow, and at the top under the slipcase it just says Turtles 3. Alright, let's go ahead and check out the figures. And here they are, the Turtles 3 Neca Turtles, all geared up and out of the box. Well, let's talk about first impressions just with sculpting and how the figures look. The level of detail here is really very impressive. As a matter of fact, upon first glance, I think it's fair to say that the level of detail here is probably greater than either the first Turtles movie set or the second. And that's not exactly saying that they're a good direct comparison, because honestly there's just a whole lot more going on with the costumes in Turtles 3. And when I say the costumes in Turtles 3, I do not mean the animatronic turtle outfits. I mean the actual costuming over the turtle animatronics. Honestly, it's a good thing that they're covered up as much as they are, because those costumes are horrid compared to the Jim Henson costumes. If you don't know, Jim Henson did not work on Turtles 3, and it's very obvious when you watch the movie. Thankfully, when they're in this gear and in this mode, the designs are actually really, really nice in the movie, and I've always liked their samurai armor. It's one of the only high points, I think, in the film, is the way that the samurai armor looks, and the helmets, and especially their big coats that they wear, which is one big reason why I was so glad that they came with the soft goods versions. Let's go ahead and look at each of the turtles. We're going to start with top billed star of the film, Corey Feldman, right here as Donatello. Indeed, they made Feldman out to be the kind of star of the movie. Of course, he's the biggest name, I guess, from the Turtles voice actors, and so he is very much a big deal in the movie. He did not play Donatello in Turtles 2, so him coming back in Turtles 3, I suppose they figured that was a pretty big get. I really love the way that the armor turns out, and I especially like the way Donatello's eyes turn out. You'll notice that all of the turtles in this set have very expressive eyes, and I think they've done a great job here with Donatello, and he's of course no exception. We'll use Donatello to look at the helmet here, and for each of the turtles we'll look at one aspect of the costumes that are very, very similar across the board. With Donatello's helmet, you can see that much like the other turtles, it's very much rooted in all kinds of great stylistic detail from the era. Not only that, but I really like the subtle paintwork, and I like how each of the individual rivets are actually highlighted by paint, whether it's the silver on the sides or the gold on top, and these really, really sharp spikes at the top, which have pricked my hand a few times trying to adjust the heads. So that's something that you definitely ought to be on the lookout for. Not only that, but I'm really impressed by the face coverings that they wear on their samurai armor, and the little mustaches and goatees, which are color-coded. I have no idea if they're like that in the actual movie. Here you can see that it has a very subtle purple that almost matches the Turtles bandana. I also like that you can see that they've sculpted in the lining that goes down to hold on the chin piece, and all of the turtles have very, very similar looks when it comes to the helmets and the mouthpieces. Of course, you can see that Donatello does have weapon storage, but you have to just tuck it into the belt back there, which is how a lot of the weapon storage is accomplished with the set. Next up, we have Robbie Rist coming back as Michelangelo for Turtles 3. I really think that this is a great looking figure. I like the expression that they chose for Michelangelo, which we'll get a better look at here in a little bit when I take the masks off and the helmets off. In particular, I am going to use Michelangelo to talk about the Time Scepter. The Time Scepter is, of course, the big object in the film, kind of the MacGuffin that they're trying to build back to get home. And in the movie, there are several versions of the Time Scepter. There's the old one that you see at the beginning of the film, and I guess April found it at a flea market, and it's all broken and everything, and I'm very impressed by this because they actually have the broken panes of glass, and the color is dingier, and there's kind of a faded Japanese lettering on there, and I just think it looks great. It's very disheveled and very broken up and kind of crooked, just like the actual prop in the movie. With the nice and shiny one, which is back in the past, that is also captured really well. And it's amazing looking that they could get like all of this detail in there, and it's kind of funny. You almost think they would light up. It's kind of a shame they don't. I guess it would have added a lot of cost to the set. There's also this scepter from the film. Michelangelo does include weapon storage, but you just have to tuck it into the belt there for the nunchucks. I think that Leonardo's animatronic head in the movie definitely looked very, very different from the first two films, and trust me, I mean that in a negative way, but especially noticeable throughout the movie is his weird eyelids, and I think that they've done a really good job accentuating that here. And it always kind of looks like he's kind of, I don't know, he's kind of high or something throughout the movie, and I have no idea why the eyelids are the way they are in the film. Not only that, but we'll take this opportunity to talk about the soft goods coats that they're all wearing. These, of course, are completely removable, and they're just basically, they go on over the figures, and all of them are the same except for Leonardo's. You can see that it actually had openings that you put his scabbards through for his katana blades. I think this is really cool, but I will tell you to be careful because these openings are very small, so you'll feel like you're stretching this fabric to its breaking point almost to try to get it over the sheaths. But it works really well, and I think it was a good solution. A lot of other companies just probably would have thrown 4 of the exact same robes in there and not worried about it. But Neca actually did make a point to make sure that it could, he could still wear this just like in the movie. So I think that they did a really good job there. These also all have posing wire on the sides. Now, I would be a lot happier about this because truthfully, I always love that when there's posing wire in something. But you can see that on the inside, it's white. And I feel like it ought to be a dark color to where that wouldn't have been so noticeable. Other than that, though, it's great that there's opposing wire at least on the side. And that leads us to our last turtle, Raphael. Of course, Raphael has his size in right here, and you can just stuff those right into the belt right there on the front. He has the least colored of the mustaches and goatees on the face coverings. It's just a very barely there burgundy on it, and I think that looks nice. You can see that Raphael has some pretty wild eyes going because, you know, in Turtles 3, the eyes are just not as subtle. They're a lot more just bulbous and out there. I will say that he does look like he's kind of staring off into space. Maybe it's just mine, but at least all of the eye paint is extremely straight on mine and very even. So I would say that it's the best eye paint that I've gotten out of all 3 of the Turtles movie sets from Neca, so that's a good thing. So I'm going to use Raphael as a way to show you the sculpting of the actual bodysuit underneath. Now, this is a very impressive thing to see all of Neca's work, but are we really surprised at this point? You have, for one thing, the cool breastplate right there, and there's all the little dots that are painted very neatly, might I add, and they even have the little designs printed onto the top metal area. You can see that he has just kind of a belt and the 3 sections of armor. Not only that, but he is wearing the kind of subtly painted poofy pants, and he has the gold shin guards and the little sandals that the turtles have. He has the wrist guards and the gloves from the film as well. And what's really cool is they went to the trouble, even though they probably didn't have to, of really painting up all of that interior detail right there. And not only that, but we can see that you can actually see the white kind of gi that's underneath and the gray gi that's underneath. So it's just a very impressive smorgasbord, if you will, of sculpting that's going on with each of these turtles. And I do believe they all share the exact same bodies, except Leonardo's has the scabbard for the katanas on the back. All right, so just showing you how this works, I'll use Donatello over here, and we will take off his helmet. And basically, there is a little notch in there, and you're meant to push the knot from the bandana tie into it. So if you put it back here and you push in, you get a little click, and that secures it on. Some of the turtles it secures a little bit better than others, but honestly, overall, it works pretty well for what it needs to do. And it even allows a little bit of adjustment and posing with the helmet, just slightly, to where you can either have it up or down. You can see that in order to take the face masks and put them on correctly, that you always have to remove the heads. In doing so, you would have slid this onto the front of the mouth and then the strap onto the back. And so that easily comes off, and there he is, Donatello. All right, and here we have Raphael in more of a diorama type of situation. And I did want to just show you how striking these figures can look when you're kind of putting them in more of like a period setting. And here's Raphael unmasked. And of course, they've done a great job capturing that very strange animatronic that was used in Turtles 3. It's certainly a dead ringer for the kind of more smooth look with the polka dotty spots that were on that head for the film. No Yoshi figure? No problem. And look at that. What a treat it is to have Raphael with Yoshi, just like in the movie. Yeah, okay. I know.
Look, Yoshi, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I know that I'm like your father figure and stuff, and I know that I'm like your new dad, and I CPR'd you back to life and all that. But I'm just telling you right now, I'm like 17 years old. I ain't ready to be no father. Gotta go. Oops.
Raphael, where you go? Come back, no. So I was actually quite excited to see that indeed you can get any of the 4 turtles on the 7-inch scaled McFarlane horse sculpt. You can just barely get the feet down there to get in the stirrups, and you can do that on both. And the scaling is really, really nice. And here's Raphael riding through ancient Japan, as you do. All right, so we'll definitely take some time to talk about articulation. Of course, with the head, we have our standard kind of that we see throughout all the different sets. It goes up and down quite a bit, and you can get quite a bit of side to side, and you can turn it all the way around. This one does feel even less inhibited than the ones that have come before. I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe it's because the shell is less pronounced on the back, so that they have a little more room to kind of work it around. You can see that with the arms, you can almost get it to 90 degrees, and maybe if I pushed a little more, I could get it further, but that's what you can comfortably get right there. With the elbows, they have a very effective single joint. As a matter of fact, it goes in just slightly more than 90, so that's really good. There is a swivel, but it's not really a bicep swivel, it's just a swivel at the shoulder. You can bring the arm all the way around with nothing really inhibiting it. You can swivel at the elbow right there. There is some great hinges at the wrist depending on which hand you have in, and of course you can turn it side to side. With the waist, you can see that you're able to kind of move the diaphragm around left to right and a little bit forward and back, but it's not huge or anything, but it's all hidden by this on the front. Not only that, you can twist it side to side, which kind of works as the waist swivel. You can get some really good splits, and you could go probably even further than this. You can do some forward kicking. I wouldn't leave it like this very long, as with most Neca figures, this one kind of has the kind of rubbery, plasticky diaper kind of situation going on right here, so you don't want to warp this out too much. But you can certainly get a serviceable kick, and that's probably more than the Suit Performers could get in terms of a kick. You can see that we do have a rotation at both legs, but you can't do very much with it. There is a double jointed knee going on here, but it's very inhibited by all of this sculpting on both ways, on the pants and on the boot. However, it does the job, and you can see that it almost gets 90 degrees. Now, it's a shame because that is a double joint in there, and I know that if it wasn't for the sculpting blocking it, you could get more, and yeah, I pretty well worked it to 90 right there. So anytime you can get 90 degrees with big poofy pants like this, I think that's an accomplishment. You can twist it side to side. You do get some really deep hinges down here at the ankles, and you can go really far this way and really far back. So that works out really well. I did see someone break one of their figures on this point, so be really careful. And remember, always use warm water if it even gives you a little resistance. You can see that we have some great ankle rocker pivot, so much so that we'll do our usual test. And you can see that even in the widest pose, and that was live with no cutting or anything, he's able to flat foot those, so it's really not a problem at all. So overall, he's pretty much just as articulated as the ones that come before. Definitely there's a little more going on up here to inhibit kicks going out, but other than that, it's really a pretty good deal in terms of articulation, especially for a figure that has this much stuff and this much sculpting going on. The set does include these two swords that are kind of old-timey and period accurate. And the whole purpose, I think, in the movie of this even happening was to kind of get Michelangelo away from the nunchucks, because those had become, for whatever reason, such a big point of contention in Europe when it came to the censorship. Who knows? You get open palms for left and right. You get this grasping hand with one finger out. 2 flat open palms, tighter grasping hands, fisted hands, and a side-holding hand, as well as the pointing grasping hand and another kind of barely grasping hand. It must have been pretty weird for the sculptors on this set to go in and attempt to do less good turtle head sculpts because, you know, just from the source material, it isn't anything to do with their ability, but, you know, the source material, they're just not as well done. So instead, what I think that they did to, I don't know, almost validate themselves as artists a little bit more, was to go in and say, well, we're also going to do more heads for your old Turtles figures. And so that led to some angry, super angry heads. I think these are meant to be original movie Turtles heads, but I could totally be wrong. Going by Donatello, who changed looks probably the most significantly between films, to me this looks like Turtles 1 Donatello. And I love the absolute scowling look here. Just remember the head is what's included. It is absolutely gorgeous and will work perfectly with your original Turtles 1 movie bodies. And even though they're probably meant for the Turtles 1 bodies, you can totally use the Secret of the Ooze bodies. This one is the Leonardo head that I think turned out really well. I think this is meant to be the head when Shredder has him pinned down and he does the crazy like grimace. I think that that looks really good. And again, even though I'm utilizing it on the Secret of the Ooze body, I think, and this one's a little harder for me because it almost does look like it's meant for Turtles 2 Raphael. These are compatible with, of course, all the bodies from the 3 films on the lines Neca has done. But you know what? This may be my favorite Raphael head that they've done. Shame you can only get it this way in this set, but man, just when I thought that there was no way to do any more Raphael scowls, they done it. I mean, that is beautiful. And just in case you didn't think wax on, wax off could get any more intense, you were wrong, buddy boy. Again, it just feels like that their art is just improving for every one of these that they do, and it's really, really cool looking. Mine does have kind of a light spot on top of the head, but other than that, I mean, that is a dead-on likeness to the costume in the movie. That's incredible. And yes, that means I have to do Donatello in his angry cleaning variant outfit from the accessory pack. And we'll definitely do just a couple of quick fun comparisons. I must not have ever gotten the Donatello from the old Turtles 3 figures, or I'm crazy or I've misplaced them or something. But these are the ones I have, and these are of course the original Playmates counterparts from the early 90s. And yes, I was in the theater as a 6-year-old. My dad took me to see Turtles 3. I knew something was wrong with it, but I couldn't articulate what. But I still had a good time. And although they're not often talked about, Playmates did in a fashion remake those figures in the 2012 series toy line from the CGI show. And I always thought these were pretty neat. Even though they kind of do their own thing, they're still in spirit pretty much the exact same thing. Interesting note, this line even had a Usagi Yojimbo. And wouldn't that have been great if he'd been in Turtles 3? That would have at least been something. I would have hated to have seen what they would have come up with for a costume for Usagi, but you know. So there's no getting around that Turtles 3 is a really bad movie, like a horrible movie. And they made so many missteps with it that it's really no wonder why that it kind of put the Turtles brand on ice for so many years. However, there are some positive takeaways from the whole experience. I was like 6 years old when the movie came out, and it did entertain me for about an hour and a half. So that was something. I happily bought it on VHS. There were some parts that I thought were funny. Other than enjoying it as a kid, I will say that it is at least much, much, much better than the awful costume Turtles appearances from things like the Coming Out of Our Shells tour and things like the Christmas video, and those things are just on a whole other level. But Turtles 3 tried some things and definitely failed. However, I will say that these figures do such a great job of capturing Turtles 3, and dare I say, almost look better somehow than the actual costumes that were used in the film. It may very well just be the magic of scaling something like this down a little bit and doing such premium details and paint and sculpt and just kind of putting that all together, I think kind of nullifies some of the lack of quality from Turtles 3, and it really does look nice. So if you're like me and you do at least have some nostalgia for Turtles 3, even though it's not a good movie at all, then I think you're going to love this set. It's probably the best work that Neca has done on Turtles, honestly, when you look at the materials and the sculpts and just the quality of the replication here. However, this set is going to have a lot more of a narrow appeal than the first two did. I can't stand it when people lump Turtles 2 in with Turtles 3 and say, well, Turtles 2 and 3 were really bad. No, 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 no. Turtles 2 is pretty good. Turtles 3 is the bad one, trust me. And that's definitely going to make a difference when it comes to people being interested in this set. However, I was sure to snatch this up, not only because they're just great figures, but because of that incredible VHS box art that they've done. And now I have the whole trilogy of VHS boxes, as we saw earlier in the video. So it is a really cool thing to have all those together, and I just enjoy the look of all of these guys just in a group, and especially with their helmets and the face masks on. I think that they're going to be very imposing on the shelf, and I'll be hard pressed not to put them in the very middle. Combine that with the bonus of getting the brand new angry heads that are meant to, I think, replicate some things from Turtles 1 or some of the other films, depending on which character, and you've got a real winner of a set. I believe that I paid right around $150 for these guys, and they just came in from Neca. So far, that's the only way to own them. However, if they go by kind of the trends we've seen before, then eventually there will be like Walmart 2-packs of the Turtles. Not sure if that's going to happen, and I'm certainly not so sure that they would include like the angry heads that they came with, but who knows? We'll just have to see. Either way, I hope you've enjoyed the review today. Of course, be sure to comment down below and let me know what you thought about these guys. Be sure to subscribe because I review new stuff all the time, especially Turtles and Masters and all that good stuff. And like the video because that really does help us out. And as always, God bless you and yours, and I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Fanboy out.
Ladies and gentlemen, our master Splinter! Give it up!
Have you ever skipped rocks on the water? Skipped them when the water is flat and calm, and watched the rings grow around the place where the stone touched the water. Each of you is like that stone, and everything you do, good or bad, makes rings. All of you must work to only make good rings, because just like the water, the rings that go out will affect all that they touch. Raphael, you remember the day you came home from the park so excited? The story you told me. The truth always lies here. It is the smallest things that make the biggest difference.
I just wanna ride it as I set it free. I'm standing. Keep on skipping stones. A smooth blue pane of glass. I'm skipping stones. Sometimes I stand and look at all that must be done. Oh, I'm skipping stones.
Into the back of a garbage truck. Ah!
Pane of glass. Oh, skipping stones. Water surrounds me, but the time for rings has passed. Oh, yeah, I'm skipping stones. On a smooth blue pane of glass. I'm skipping stones.
But the truth is, I don't watch Turtles 3 for fun and don't watch it often like most sane people because it's horrible.